So who puts us back? Okay. Good morning. We're back on the record. The time is 9:04 a.m. The date is April 4th, 2025. The commission and its staff are appearing from Phillipsburg, Montana at the Granite County Museum. This is day 3 of the scheduled public hearing in docket number 2024.12.119 involving L&L Site Services Incorporated's application for Class D certification of public convenience and necessity. To begin the day, I will first ask for public comment. We'll begin with public commenters in the room.
I'd like to comment.
Okay.
You can come sit up here at this table.
Right here.
Yes. Please note that this session is being recorded and all comments received will be public record, so please don't include confidential or private information in your comments. Please state your name and the town where you live. We don't need your physical address, just the town. And if you're speaking on behalf of an organization, please identify that organization. And if you have any written comments, please submit them online through the commissioner's website.
Okay. My name is Scott Fink. I'm representing Mustang Builders, LLC locally here in Phillipsburg. I currently reside in Phillipsburg. And my business, Mustang Builders, is here in Phillipsburg. I'm a custom home builder.
You go ahead and speak, sir.
Okay. I guess I'd like to talk a little bit about how we go about getting rid of our trash and debris from our job sites. On multiple occasions, I've tried to get a roll-off dumpster in Granite County for any of my job sites, and it's extremely difficult. I've called representatives from, actually my wife has called representatives from Anaconda and Missoula. We kind of get the runaround in Missoula quite a bit. I think we've called Republic. We get a transfer to a transfer to a transfer of, well, this person can help you, this person can help you, and to no avail. In Anaconda, they say, well, we do not do any roll-offs or any dumpster distribution in Phillipsburg. So we've asked questions. Well, we're not authorized to do that. Okay, so in that case, then we start doing our own debris removal, which is not very cost effective for us, and we are not the professionals. We do utilize the refuse department down here at Phillips Granite County. it becomes extremely difficult because we have to separate materials for them. We like to just kind of establish a dumping point, dump all of our debris into a dumpster or a roll-off, and then have the professionals take and dispose of it accordingly. So I wrote down some of the benefits of having roll-offs on a job site. It simplifies the whole waste management solution. It provides a more environmentally friendly solution. So meaning we're able to consolidate everything, throw it in a dumpster, and not have everything, all of our debris blown across the country. We have these microbursts that show up here in Phillipsburg quite often and end up taking our smaller debris and blowing them all over the countryside, it seems like. Having a roll-off would reduce emissions in the county. That leads to a single trip leaving my job site to multiple trips of us leaving our job site to dispose of the debris. Having a roll-off dumpster for us is a great safety concern. It creates a safer work environment. We have a central location where we can dump all of our debris. And that just creates a safer work environment. And then it creates a nice clean curb appeal for our residents. So for instance, when they're driving by my job site, they don't just see this large pile of debris just sitting out in the open. They're able to see a roll-off and see that they not see the debris at all. And then we can cover those as well and essentially pin down the debris that's in the dumpster. Those are just some of the areas that we would like to be able to see roll-offs or dumpsters available for Granite County.
At this point, Mr. Fink had an employee of L&L had reached out to Mr. Fink as a contractor. He knew him to be a contractor and spoke with him about this. Mr. Johnson reached out to Mr. Fink, spoke with him last night, said, please come in for public comment, and would make an attempt to have him sworn as a shipper witness and offer testimony under oath. So at this point, we would move to have Mr. Fink sworn and have the commission take his testimony under oath as evidence of need. And we'll do it.
Any objection?
I think we heard a lot of loud and direct complaints from L&L about late disclosures yesterday, and I guess my reaction is what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If that is the kind of issues that L&L is concerned about, then there is a pretty straightforward process for identifying and disclosing witnesses. I appreciate, again, why L&L may want to call this witness given the testimony he just made, and or the public statement rather that he just made. But that is why we have a pre-hearing order. That's why we allow this disclosure process to happen beforehand, and it's to allow both sides to prepare for that testimony. And so that wasn't the case here. It seems that there must be some relationship between L&L's employees and Mr. Fink that pre-exists today. We've not been afforded the same opportunity that they have to prepare for that testimony. For that reason, we asked that it be excluded.
And may I respond?
Yes.
briefly, Ms. Webster? So the difference between the tardy disclosures is I didn't have Mr. Fink's testimony in my possession prior to yesterday evening after the hearing had concluded. And any issues related to, we would be willing to take a break, let Republic's counsel talk to Mr. Fink and prepare for his testimony. I think it's in the public interest to have this substantive testimony about his attempts to get service from Republic on the record. And in my pre-hearing memorandum, I do this as a safety, a backstop for these kind of situations. Sometimes it happens with people that I don't know are coming in to offer public comment. Sometimes we do this same thing where we've had conversations with Mr. Fink prior to him coming in and encourage those folks to come in and offer public comment. And when we discover that it's substantive on the record here, we attempt to have them placed under oath to provide substantive testimony.
Thank you, counsel. We will discuss this objection. One moment.
Objection overruled.
The protestants' counsel may have 20 to 25 minutes to discuss to question the newly disclosed witness if desired. We'd allow a brief recess for that.
If the commission might permit a couple of questions. Our witness from yesterday, Jim Hutchinson, I think at the conclusion of yesterday, had finished his direct testimony and has not yet started his cross-examination. Just for timing purposes, I know that his schedule allows him to be here until 12 o'clock today. I do have a little bit of concern that if we have this go ahead of that, based on Ms. Garrett's suggestion yesterday that she's going to have several hours of cross-examination for him, I am a little bit concerned about that timing. We would have no concern about, given the commission's ruling already, we'd have no concern about questioning this witness after that, but I am a little bit concerned about doing it before that.
I will get Mr. Hutchinson out of here before then. I will commit to that at this point.
Sir, do you have any time constraints on your availability today?
I do not. I'm available.
It's up to the commission in terms of scheduling. I would prefer to power through and get Mr. Fink's testimony on the I think we'll be done by 1 p.m. after this today. If we're talking about Mr. Fink's testimony, I don't anticipate it'll take at least more than 20 minutes on direct.
Okay, so Ms. Garrett's motion to admit the public comment as testimony has been granted over objection. We're still in the public comment phase. Since you have now been converted to a witness, you are welcome to continue to give public comment, but I think you'll be back here with some additional statements shortly, unless you have anything else you'd like to share that's not under oath. We would move to anybody else who's here for public comment.
I have nothing further to add.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any other public commenters in the room? Any public commenters online?
No.
Sure.
None online? So as far as the timing of Mr. Fink coming back, can we do it after? Okay. So before we start the cross-examination of James Hutchinson, we need to settle some of these preliminary matters in terms of timing.
And counsel, I believe you indicated earlier you may have some preliminary issues to discuss.
I think we've discussed our, oh, you had the judicial notice.
At this point, I've got some of the cross-examination with Mr. Hutchinson will rely on Republic's annual reports from 2021, 2022, and 2023. So I just ask that the commission take judicial notice of those documents. Don't have paper copies because I don't have access to a printer. I can send those via email to the commission. I believe opposing counsel has those. Obviously in his possession.
Is there an objection?
We have no objection.
Okay. So we will grant judicial notice to those files.
The annual reports are generally known to the commission and are capable of accurate determination on our Ready portal to the public.
Okay.
As for other preliminary matters, we wanted to iron out the time moving forward for today. Is it the plan to resume with cross-examination of Mr. Hutchinson?
That would be my
First.
guess, and you know, I don't know if there's another issue that's come up that I am also attempting to get in contact with another witness to discuss some issues that have been raised by the opposing counsel. In terms of some evidence that was offered yesterday, I would like an opportunity. I would like to take a break right now, and I'll be given an opportunity to see if I can't get in touch with the individual that is at issue here, to have a conversation with him and understand a little bit better about what's going on with that. And my guess is, I think I've refined my cross-examination for Mr. Hutchinson, and I can't imagine that being more than approximately 60 minutes at the most. And then I would imagine that Mr. Forcello will have some redirect after that. And the commission obviously may have questions. I don't anticipate my cross-examination at this point having kind of time to go through everything will take longer than an hour.
Is there any objection to taking a break at this time?
We have no objection to taking a break as long, again, the concern solely is the witness's availability and that he needs to be leaving for an airport at no later than noon, I believe. So as long as we can get him out of here by noon, I have no objection to a break.
It seems we can make that work. And Counsel for Republic, would you like additional time for the break to have a discussion with the newly disclosed witness? How much time would you need?
How long do you need to-
I'm good.
Oh, I
I mean, in terms of,
How long do you need for your?
I
discussion
don't
on
know
that?
about
Fair,
that. I don't
fair.
know that I'm gonna be able to get in touch with him, so.
Okay, 20 minutes seems acceptable if that's okay with the commission.
We will reconvene. We're gonna close. It's 9:23. We'll reconvene at 9:45.
Say that again. I guess so.
The time is 9:52. We're resuming the meeting. Sound like you were discussing who's gonna go next?
Commissioners, actually, I think we've got a motion to make. I understand the motion is unopposed. I'll try to be clear, but if I misstate the motion, please, Ms. Garrett, correct me. I want to get it right. I think we're both in agreement on this. The motion is to strike from the evidentiary record all testimony by witness Vicky Witt, specifically with regard to her testimony about referring customers to other garbage haulers. Did I get that right?
In Granite County.
And sir, thank you. Referring customers in Granite County to other garbage haulers.
That's my understanding. That was our agreement to the motion.
Okay, so it is unopposed.
Okay. So we'll make a motion then to strike all.
They made the.
Motion is granted. Thank you. Did you want James Hutchinson complete the
I'm
cross?
okay with either, whatever order Ms. Garrett prefers. She's given us the courtesy of witnesses out of order before, and we're happy to extend the same courtesy.
Why don't you do Mr. Fink and get him done, and then we'll go back to Mr. Hutchinson. Is that,
Yes, we can do that.
Yes, please, call your witness.
Mr. Fink, could you come take the stand here in his room?
For clarity, is Mr. Fink out of order for your rebuttal case or another part of your case?
And this would be I think his evidence would be for L&L's case chief, as a particular witness.
Okay, thank you for that information.
Please raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated. Please spell your full name for the record.
Um,
Couldn't hear you, Miss Commissioner.
I was just asking him to spell his name.
Scott R. Fink, SCOTT. R is in Roger, ROGER. Fink, FINK.
Mr. Fink, my name is Ally Garrett. I'm the attorney for L&L Site Services Grizzly Disposal. We're the applicant in this matter. Have we met before?
Not until this morning.
Okay. Do you know Lance Johnson?
Nope.
Do you know any of these other three back here?
I don't know anybody
Okay.
here.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Do you live in Granite County?
I do.
Okay. And what do you do for work?
I'm a general contractor.
What kind of projects do you work on?
I do primarily custom homes.
How long have you lived in Granite County?
Let's see, 3 years now.
And you've been a general contractor that whole time?
Yes, ma'am.
And you mentioned during public comment that you've tried to get roll-off dumpsters. Can you tell me who you've contacted to try to get roll-off containers at job sites?
So personally, I haven't contacted anybody, but my wife, I've given that task to her. But she had contacted Anaconda Disposal, and I believe Republic out of Missoula. And then I believe she tried to contact somebody in Butte, to no avail, so.
Are all of your projects in Granite County, or do you work also in the surrounding counties?
My projects are between Granite County and Deer Lodge County.
Do you know, on your projects in Granite County, has your wife your wife works for the business?
Yes.
You look unsure about that. Tell me what your observation is.
She does a lot of my admin stuff behind the scenes.
Okay.
So yes, she does.
Perfect. What is the name of your business?
Mustang Builders LLC.
I want to talk specifically because this application is specific to Granite County. So I want to talk about just projects in Granite County that you've requested roll-off services for. When Mustang has contacted Republic, what has been the response?
Objection, it sounds like the, objection foundation. The witness testified that he has not been in contact with Garbage Haulers, it was his wife who contacts Garbage Haulers.
I'll lay some more foundation, but I imagine most have the same objection, but I'll withdraw that question. So are you the only member of the LLC?
Currently, yes.
Is your wife a member of the LLC, or is she an employee of Mustang?
She was a member, yes.
Okay. When was she somehow removed as a member or something?
We went to an S corp and we purchased a couple other businesses, so she is now running those other businesses.
And when was that?
November.
Okay. And so when she was with the LLC, was she responsible for obtaining roll-off containers for job sites in Granite County?
I gave her that responsibility.
Did you guys regularly discuss those requests for roll-off containers as part of the business?
Of course we did. It was via text, via phone call, via face-to-face.
And what were you able to get roll-off service in Granite County?
We did not obtain it at that point, no.
When was the last time that a request was made by Mustang Holdings to Republic Services for a roll-off container in Granite County?
I believe we started to ask around July, August of last year for our last project that was completed in December.
And when was the most recent attempt?
That was it.
Okay, July or August of last year.
Yes, ma'am.
And how are you disposing at your job site now? Job sites in Granite County?
Renting a dump trailer and then dumping at either Missoula or Butte.
Is that convenient for you?
Not at all.
And you gotta have somebody drive the truck?
Truck, yes. Usually I send a laborer and or I just rent the member truck and the dump trailer.
I have no further questions for this witness.
Examination.
Thank you, Commissioners. Morning, thank you again for coming up today.
Good morning.
My name is Lucas Porcello. I represent Republic Services in this matter. I think just a couple of follow-up questions will get you out of here.
Thank you.
When was the last time Republic denied service to Mustang Builders? Is that correct?
Mustang Builders, correct.
So when is the last time that Republic denied service to Mustang?
We were not denied service.
Okay. Prior to, I think you said July or August of 2024, approximately how many jobs have you done in Granite County since you moved here? You said, I think 3 years ago.
Three
3 jobs in total.
custom homes.
3 custom homes in Granite County.
No, 2 in Granite County,
Okay.
1 current,
1 current,
and 1 in Deer Lodge County.
1 in Deer Lodge. Okay, thank you. So two in the last 3 years, 2 custom homes located in Granite County.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fink, I think that's all the questions we have for you. Thank you.
I have no questions for Mr. Green.
No questions.
Okay. You may be excused.
Thank you.
Be permanent. Temporarily excused.
Is it okay for the witness to be permanently excused?
Okay, thank you, sir. You're permanently excused.
Thank you.
Now we'll proceed with completing the cross-examination. Mr. Hutchinson.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Hutchinson. How are you this morning?
Good morning. So,
Can I call you Jim?
please do.
Okay, perfect. You're the Northwest Area Director of Municipal Sales. Is that right?
Yeah, sales services, I do use that interchangeably.
Okay. How many, you might have said this yesterday, which states are we talking about?
So Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Utah, Montana, Alaska, Vancouver, BC, and most recently Colorado, until the end of last year, it was Colorado, Wyoming, and a portion of New Mexico.
How many areas does Republic have in the United States?
Our core business, so we have an environmental solutions portion that has 4 areas, and in our core business, there are 12 areas now. 2 of those areas were just recently created, which is why I no longer have Colorado.
Does that give you less to do when you take Colorado off your plate, or you still probably have about the same workload?
I do, but there's no doubt about it that the company has grown over the last few years. And as a result of that, we've added the 2 new areas because of the growth. My workload has shifted, I would argue, but has not necessarily slackened.
There was some conversation yesterday about, I know that Republic had some call centers that they had opened in the mid to late 2010s, is that right?
No, it was because I was with the company, so it was after there. So I started in started in 2012. I would say they were more around 2013, 2014.
Oh, okay. Where were those located?
I cannot recall the exact locations of where they are. Best way I can describe it, one East Coast, one Central, one West Coast. One was in Phoenix, was the one that I'm aware of the most. So.
Okay. And Phoenix is where the company's headquarters are?
Correct.
Okay. But there were other call centers outside of Phoenix.
Correct. One I think was.
Is there one in Las Vegas?
No. We had one in Indianapolis and then one in. I'm sorry, I cannot remember where exactly that was. It's been, they're gone since COVID, so it's been over 5
So
years.
subsequently those shut down, is that right?
Correct. The bricks and mortars of those shut down, and all of that, as a result of COVID, initially went remote, and then we kept it that way predominantly.
And you mentioned yesterday that it sounds like that's preferable for a lot of your customer service representatives. Is that your impression?
The remote work is preferable. We've seen a significant increase in the retention. Sorry.
That's okay. It also probably costs less for Republic if you don't have a call center where people are having to come into work. You're not paying for that property thing.
I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that.
What's your dealing with the customer service angle of the business?
So obviously, the call centers work with our municipal customers, and our needs in areas vary.
So my question is, what is your relationship with the customer service angle?
It varies depending on the area that we have.
Okay, so this area.
So in Montana, we have so the call center gets broken into, now that they're remote, we have a Montana pod, which is individuals who are specific, and that was probably created. It actually is split between Montana and Washington right now, and we are refining that to be Montana specific in the very near term. And so that Montana pod and the Washington pod, they report out to us data, us being the area team, data on a biweekly basis about call volumes, issues that are coming up, or anything of substance.
And so is there a customer service person? So there's an area of customer service representatives. Is there a management person?
Yes, Ryan Kaufman testified to them the other day. He mentioned the names, Josh Landis, who actually has been promoted with the company, so we're looking for his replacement right now, and Lisa Rawl, who's the manager of that.
Are they located in Montana?
No, Lisa is in Washington and Josh is in Oregon.
How many customer service representatives does Republic have in the state of Montana?
Objection, relevance.
And so one of the issues, one of the claims that L&L has raised here is a need for better customer service.
Relevance of their geographic location. Sorry, I have to be more specific with my objection.
Well, I think there's some inferences to be made based on shipper witness testimony and attempts to get service from Republic. And in fact, the rancher Rock Creek is dealing with people out of state who said they don't service Granite County.
Thank you, council. One moment.
Objection overruled.
I don't know. I know we try to attract them from all over the areas. So we don't necessarily qualify somebody in a geographic area because they can do remote, but we do the pod section that I was talking about. We have, I think it is, and I'm speculating, so I should not do that.
All right, so let's, if we talk about the, has it always been that way? This, where the customer service representatives are, you explained that it changed. I'm sorry, I'll withdraw that question. You explained that it changed previously in your 12-year tenure as the Northwest Area Director for Sales. You at one time had customer service representatives in the local offices in Montana, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And you were here for Vicki Witt's testimony yesterday.
That's correct.
Okay. Is there any benefit to having in a service area like Montana with rural areas, very rural areas at times, having customers, service representatives who are familiar with the local geography?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why we created the pods.
But you don't know if you have any customer service representatives located in Montana, correct?
I don't know where they're located, but they are informed and they're specific. They're answering questions for people who call. So
But
yeah,
they're not from Granite County, right? You don't have anybody in
they could
Granite
be.
County.
I don't know.
And so if they were from, you don't have any dealings with customer service representatives in Montana, is what you're saying?
Individually, no, I deal with their management.
Okay. You mentioned a figure related when you were discussing the customer service representatives working for home. You mentioned a statistic of 99.9%. Can you explain to me what that was in reference to?
Yeah, the company as a whole prides itself on 99.9% service reliability.
And how's that measured?
We do that by the number of opportunities we have to meet a successful need.
Okay,
And
so talk to me about what's an opportunity? Is that a request for service from a customer?
possibly,
Okay, what else?
it could also be on the collection side where we have so we've been talking a lot about roll-off. Roll-off is in two sets. We consider that in two portions of that. One is perm work, one is temporary work. Temporary or perm work is scheduled work, routine work, similar to what we have at the transfer station. You know what it is, you're kind of regularly picking it up. On the temp work, it's also, hey, somebody calls in, they express an expectation of when they want a service, we schedule that service and we rate a miss based upon, did we get there when we made the commitment that we would be there?
And who's tracking that?
The general managers are the ones who are primarily tracking that, but obviously the data input is from the supervisors, the ops teams about which routes are completed, which routes are successful. They do look at which routes, slowing down, sorry, have to move or change given weather, example, or given weather, and we track it from that standpoint, and we also have individuals who obviously call in and make requests or express that we had missed them. One of the unique things about what we do is that if somebody calls in a miss, and even if we have photographic evidence that we did not miss them, we still consider that a miss. And so that would go against our 99.9%.
What information, in terms of, if you have roll-off service in Granite County, what information is, how are you tracking those requests for service or those temporary or permanent? How are you tracking that?
We track them through the call center or through however they've communicated with us.
And how do the calls that come into the call center, how do they get tracked in Granite County or in Montana?
I don't know the name of the software system that we use, but there's a software system that we use and track that and create what we call F2 notes on information that's supplied. I can't remember the name of the actual software we use for that.
Jim, is it fair to say that there's a level of separation between what you do for Republic and the customer service side of things?
Absolutely.
What role does profitability play in analyzing whether the business for Republic in Montana is successful?
What role is profitability? Well, so the way if you're saying how do we charge or whatever, we have
No, I'm saying you have things that you have to consider as part of your job as a sales director. What role is profitability at the top of that?
Service becomes first.
Mhm.
Because we know, and you've heard me say that once already, I know I've testified before this commission in the past, we view our permits as not a right, but a responsibility. So service first and foremost. And then as a result of that, our pricing, we then go back and evaluate, are we priced correctly to make sure that we are profitable to the standards that we set for ourselves. And that may impact how we increase rates at a later date or whatever, but typically our rates our sales individuals, and I deal with municipal sales, not our sales team directly. But our sales team have a program called Capture that they use to give them guidelines of what the pricing should be. But service, it starts with service.
Okay. So yesterday you said that Republic is in the business of being profitable. right?
Absolutely.
If you're not profitable, you're not successful.
I would agree with that.
Republic in Montana is incredibly profitable. right?
Objection. Do I need to explain it?
I would like some grounds.
Vague, unclear, calls for speculation. What does incredibly mean?
Republic, I'll withdraw the question. Republic in Montana is profitable. They have, this particular division, this 1581 PSC number regularly has a profitability of a profit of margin of over 25%, right?
I don't know the specific, I know we report to the PSC, so it's whatever number we report to the PSC.
Well, let's look at this. Turn to exhibit number 3. Mr. Hutchinson, so you, as the sales director, you're not interested in the profitability of not reviewing the specific numbers out of this PSC number 1581 that we're talking about?
So I would clarify back a little bit. I'm the municipal sales, so I'm responsible for the municipal contracts, which is a small portion of what we have in Montana. I oversee what we do with our PSC permits and what we do in our legislative front, but we have an entire sales, right? We have an area sales manager who looks at the sales elements, and then we look very specifically to our finance manager who prepares these reports. And Mr. Jeff Wiggs is the one who prepares these and submits them based upon the overall. So I see some of the overall picture, but I don't get down into the day-to-day or the actions on the reports that we specifically supply to.
Okay, but you indicated to me during your testimony that you view all the permits in Montana as a responsibility, correct?
As how we implement them, yes.
Okay, and so what is your responsibility with respect to those permits?
That we are upholding our commitment.
And so that doesn't involve analyzing whether or not the division or a specific PSC number is profitable or not?
We do not break down profitability by a PSC permit.
You don't track it that way? Because Republic's a national company, not a local company, right?
We track it based upon the business unit, which has elements of sales, special waste, permanent waste, landfill, composting, processing, etc. There's a whole bunch of elements that get rolled up into the business unit that we analyze and determine their level of profitability and then hold them accountable to the budgets that they create. So we manage more towards the budget and are they meeting their goals than we do to the reporting.
So we've got exhibit 3, page 2. Looks like there's a total revenue for 2021 of, a total interstate revenue of 59,000 for Class D, $59,523,566. Did I read that correctly, Mr. Jim?
The interstate revenue, yes, $59,523,566.
Have you ever seen this report?
I did not look at these reports.
Okay. What numbers do you get?
we get the P and L from the business unit that rolls up and what it relates to their budgets and how close or how far they are from where their budgets are to meet the overall goals and expectations.
So would that include hauling and disposal services in Montana for Republic?
Yes.
So you would get the Missoula numbers or the numbers that are included, which are large.
I'm gonna object to this.
Service
My question is outside the scope of the direct examination. We didn't discuss his review of the finances of the business during direct examination. And while I think some leeway is understandable, I think the document that counsel is referring to speaks for itself. And if the witness has already testified that he does not review these numbers.
We'll move on. Let's go ahead and move on. I'll withdraw that question. The total revenue, Jim, 61,559,000. I hate reading numbers, 481.
Yes.
Net income, 15,678,188.
That is what it says.
And that net income versus total revenue would give Republic a profit margin for this PSC number of 25.4% about. I don't have a copy of 2022 or 2023 to hand you, a paper copy, but let's pull those up. So. So I've got 2022 and the pages I'll be referencing is listed there. You can look at it. I don't have any problem. We've got the 2022 Class D revenue, 66,475,327. Is that right?
Yes.
Additional non-regulated revenue, $1,560,365.
Yes.
For a total of $68,035,687.
Yes.
And net income, $17,280,794. And that's another profit margin for 2022 for PSC number 1581 of 25.4% about.
Sound right.
So almost approximately the same. Okay. Let me pull up 23 and Mr. Priscilla, you can obviously. For 2023, number 1581, we've got Class D revenue of $65,084,579. Is that correct?
Correct.
We've got additional non-regulated revenue of $12,719,270.
Correct.
And then a total revenue of $77,803,849. Net income of $22,197,314. Is that right?
Correct.
And for 2023, we got a profit margin for PSC number 1581 of about 28.5%. Is that correct?
Yeah. I'm assuming your math is correct.
I don't know that you should do that. All right. So you've been part of these PSC proceedings, right, Jim, with L&L?
Yes.
You were here in 2021. You were present at the hearing in 2018.
Is that the one that was?
That's Missoula in 2018. That's the
Yes.
first Missoula. And then were you present at the Gallatin County hearing in 2015?
That's the one I think.
This early.
I don't think I was at that one.
Okay.
I cannot recall.
Jason Veach was the general manager.
Yes, I do not. In fact, now, thank you very much. I was not at that.
Okay, perfect. So you know that after the 2021 hearing, that's when L&L came into Missoula County.
That was the second one. Yes.
And so based on Republic's annual reports for PSC number 1581, which includes Missoula County, right? Their profit.
Can you answer, what did you say?
Sorry, yes.
Thank you.
Profits increased by about 3% in this division. Is that correct?
I think that's. Yes,
Based on the numbers we just went over.
based on the numbers we just looked at, yes.
Perfect. We talked a little bit about a topic that comes up a lot in these hearings in terms of allegations of harm to the existing carriers. Is this decreased service to rural customers with new competitors coming into the market? Is that your understanding that that's your testimony, that you believe that there would be a decreased level or there's a possibility for a decreased level of service to rural customers as a result of L&L's entry into a new market?
Yes.
Okay. Republic currently has no competition for roll-off service in Granite County, correct?
No.
And we just went over the numbers that, in fact, Republic's profitability is increased after L&L's entry into the market in Missoula County, correct?
Objection, misstates the witness's testimony.
But based on the numbers we just went over,
Objection, misstates the witness's testimony.
I'm not sure it's a mistake.
Well, okay, so let's start with objection foundation. The council has not established that PSC permit certificate 1581 covers Missoula County and solely Missoula County. So if that's the characterization, I think then.
I don't think that's,
Oh,
so let's talk about PSC number 1581. That includes Missoula County, right?
I believe so, yes.
It includes Billings. Well,
I'm not that,
okay, so.
and this is, I
Well, so
probably,
this is part of what I wanted to talk to you about. So you've said that these permits are a responsibility, but you don't have any sort of intimate familiarity with the actual permits in Montana.
actually, I've read the permits quite a bit. We have a number of them in this state. And a
Let's
number of
Let's look at
sub
those.
permits in that, and I'm not sure of
Yeah,
the
well, let's
exact
look-
areas
Let's
that
look
each
right
one
at them.
covers.
Let's look at them. So it's Exhibit 4. And it's page AWS 6 is where 1581 starts. Jim, on page 15, or excuse me, on page 6, you see PSC number 1581 at the top there.
Not yet. There's various numbers. Trying to get AWS, you said
6, I guess that's what it says.
6. Yes, 1581.
All right, so we've got Looks like, so I think it's sub B, sub C, sub D. There's quite a few that relate to Missoula County. You see those?
Correct.
Okay. And so Missoula County is included in 1581, right?
Yes,
And this isn't the first time you've reviewed that. You've reviewed it before. You don't have it memorized.
correct.
Okay, because it's not how the larger business tracks or keeps track of things. It's not, you wouldn't categorize these
Correct.
PSC. Got it. Okay. It also includes billings, right?
I believe so, but I'm not having a cover.
All right, well, so let's look here. Sub K is Yellowstone County. Page 6.
Yes,
Okay, and Billings is Yellowstone.
Yes.
County. Okay. And it also includes Stillwater County, Columbus.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and it includes Granite County. Sub CC,
I believe
page
so,
7.
yes.
It looks like, sub CC is garbage between all points and places in Granite County using transfer sites for roll-off boxes. Carrier is allowed to transport authorized commodities to certified landfills from territory authorized. Did I read that correctly, Jim?
You did.
Okay, and so how is Republic fulfilling its responsibilities under that specific section of the permit?
By providing service within the territory?
Is that, that's roll-off service?
Yes.
Okay. If you turn to page 9, sub RR. Relevant subpart, garbage, rubbish, and haulage of all types of solid waste between all points and places. In Granite County, Montana, carrier is allowed to transport authorized commodities to certified landfills from territory authorized. Did I read that correctly?
You did.
And then there's some limitations on that one. Transporting garbage, rubbish, and haulage of all types of solid waste within the town of Drummond, Montana, and within a 20-mile radius thereof is prohibited. Transportation of roll-off containers from transfer sites is prohibited. Did I read that correctly?
You did.
Okay. So this one, how is Republic fulfilling its responsibilities under this permit?
Providing service outside a radius around Drummond.
How many residential, do you know, is there any residential and commercial garbage routes running from Missoula into Granite County?
That would be a better question for our general manager.
So you couldn't tell me how Republic is fulfilling its responsibilities under this permit?
Other than providing service now.
I think we've established that that 1581 does include Missoula County, correct?
Correct.
And so back to this issue about decreased service to rural customers, do you have? No, you're good. No, you're good. We need a break.
Sorry.
What you say?
No, I had that same experience last night when I laid down.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. There was some testimony, you gave some testimony yesterday about concerns about decreased service to rural customers with the introduction of L&L into the market in Granite County, right?
Yes.
And is there any indication that that has happened in, other than your testimony yesterday, that that's happened since L&L has entered the market in Missoula County?
Please ask the question again.
Is there any documentation or evidence, other than your testimony, that it's a concern that since L&L entered the market in Missoula County, that Republic's service to rural customers has decreased?
I'd have to go back and look at the costs. We look at margin only, and not costs. So margin is impacted by multiple factors. It
And
doesn't,
the profit margin has actually increased in Missoula County.
but
Objection, the state's witness's testimony.
I think we've established the profit margin for 1581, I think.
Council just established by questioning the witness that certificate 1581 includes far more than Missoula County. So the continued assertion that an increase in 1581 somehow translates to an increase in Missoula County is a logical fallacy, is misstating the witness's testimony.
Any response to that
I'll
from?
withdraw the question. You don't track Missoula County individually, do you? The profitability.
don't, the county itself, we go down to divisions, but I don't believe we have a division just for one. That would be it.
So you don't have any specific information that would indicate that the profit margin in Missoula County went down after L&L entered the market, do you?
We would know by division what the profit margins are, but the profit margins aren't the only determinant
Oh,
in
I
whether or
understand
not
that, but
service
that's
is
what we're
being
talking
tendered.
about right now. So what I wanted to, there's been these, one of the elements that we have to prove as the applicant is that there's a lack of harm to existing carriers. And you won't be harmed contrary to the public interest. And so you testified yesterday, not that you're concerned about a decreased profit margin as a result of L&L's entry into the market, right?
We're obviously interested in the profit margin, but my comment was more directed about what are, to give you an example.
No, I mean, the question seems like a yes or no question. You didn't testify that you're concerned about a decreased profit margin as a result of L&L's entry into the market into Granite County, is that correct?
I don't believe so.
Okay. You gave an example yesterday about some town or some area in Colorado, is that correct? And that example that you gave, you said that there were 7 haulers in that area?
Referencing what, there's
How?
actually more than that.
Okay.
I was referencing one street
Okay.
that 7 haulers go down.
And we already talked about that there's permanent and temporary service for roll-off service, right?
Correct.
Okay, so if one provider's servicing a temporary container, the other provider's not gonna service that same container.
Not likely.
And with the population density being what it is in Granite County, based on the testimony, and based on the administrative notice of facts related to the population in Granite County, we don't have a concern about 7 garbage trucks going down the road.
Objection calls for speculation.
I mean, the potential harm to existing carriers is always speculation. And so we've got to be able to, at least ask these questions. He can say he doesn't know.
Thank you, counsel. One moment.
Objection overruled.
What was the question? I'm sorry. Can we read it back?
And with the population density being what it is in Granite County, based on the testimony and based on the administrative notice of the facts related to the population of Granite County, we don't have a concern about 7 garbage trucks going down the road.
I don't believe that's true, but I don't know.
Do you know whether, Republic has ever sent 7 garbage trucks to Granite County in one day?
No.
Okay. Jim, during your 12 years at Republic, has Republic ever applied for a Class D certificate in Montana?
We've applied for a transfer.
You requested a transfer of authority. Have any of those do you know how many times you've done that, or they've done that since you've been, during your tenure?
During my tenure, going off memory, which is fuzzy, but I believe
Have any of those 3 been protested by an incumbent carrier?
Objection, this is well beyond the scope of direct at this point.
I think he discussed attending these hearings during his direct testimony, and I believe that he discussed acquisitions, but I could be wrong about that.
Thank you, council. One moment.
Objection sustained.
Let's talk about the Granite County contract. If you could turn Jim to 5 L&L 677. No, it's
Exhibit 6.
No, it's gonna be number 8.
It's 6.
It's exhibit 8. I know there's a version in exhibit 6, but I got the numbers for 8, so.
She hasn't given us a page. Just exhibit 8.
So as the municipal sales director for the Northwest area, is this contract with Granite County, is that, you've seen this document before?
I have.
Is this a pretty typical contract of municipal or government entity contract? It's not municipality, but is this a typical contract that Republic would enter with a local government?
This market for disposal, or speak for transfer holidays.
Okay. And who drafts these contracts?
It varies from area to area. Oftentimes we'll have our legal department take a first brush at it. Then it will go to the county or city. Sometimes it's the city or county that will draft them and send it to us. It's whoever has agreed upon doing the initial run.
Okay. And so, Is that something that the local municipal sales representative for Republic would say, oh, look, I think I'm gonna do this contract with this government entity or this county, I need you to draft it, or does he have a form that he uses and?
There is a legal request form that we have the team fill out. It again varies depending on if we have a request for proposal which has a draft or not. So it may be a review of a draft, or it may be for writing something new. I don't know where this one started.
On the, did you review this contract at any point? Or would you have had any reason to review it prior to attending the meeting in Granite County in July of last year?
Yes.
When?
I reviewed this contract, as you will see on page 7. This is signed by Malik Curley, the area president, who was my boss at that time. My duty is to review and recommend the signature of the area president.
So this section number 3, compensation, this says the county agrees to pay contractor the amount agreed upon set forth in attachment B within 30 days from the receipt of the contractor's invoice, and contractor agrees that all work and services specified in the scope of work shall be provided for this amount. Did I read that correctly?
I lost you halfway, but yes.
Number 3.
No, I'm reading that.
Okay, and then let me read the second sentence. I'm just talking about the first 2 sentences. The amount charged or paid under this agreement shall not exceed the agreed amount. Did I read that correctly?
Correct.
Okay, and then under 4, the payment schedule, there's reference to attachment B, fee structure, those kind of things. If you look, Jim, I want to make sure nobody's confused and we have everything you need on page. It's L&L 685. It's the last page of the contract, the attachment A, fee structure. You see that? Is this this is the only fee structure or pricing information that's part of this contract, right?
Period such, yes.
Is it a drafting error? Is it a typo? The exhibit references to exhibit B?
Without seeing an attachment, that's what it was.
I'm sorry, what?
Without seeing an attachment B, that is what I was.
Okay.
Now-
Go ahead.
I will clarify that, as I mentioned, I don't know who drafted this originally, because this contract, when this was signed, was not changed really at all when it was brought up in 2019.
So it was a contract before 2019.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense. And so in the original version of the contract, there might have been an attachment B.
There may have been.
Okay. But you reviewed this version before it was signed in 2019.
That is correct.
Got it. The exhibit A, does that mention anything about container rental?
It's not a big.
Are there any, there's some equipment furnished, right? It does mention contractor furnished equipment and rental, but there's no rental fees in this agreement.
Not in the existing one, no.
The one that we're looking at, right? Yeah, Exhibit A. Is there any mention of, I know Republic has some fees that sometimes get added on to invoices. Is there any mention of administrative fees?
Objection. Council's testifying to facts that are not on the record.
I'll withdraw the question. Jim, does Republic have on its website has a list of fees that might be added onto invoices? Is that correct? We can look at them if you want to.
Well, I mean, for a contract like this, or are you talking about for temporal?
Well, there's one website that's sort of, I'm talking about this contract is what we're talking about. There are invoices.
Okay, but our internet stuff doesn't reference this. Our internet references our sales side of the equation, which has different costing parameters.
Are there different administrative fees or is it the same administrative fee across all invoices?
There would be different between contracted work and non-contracted work.
Okay, so let's look at Exhibit 3, and you're gonna love how tiny this print is on the printout.
There's a reader's.
There's a two-page printout.
Are you gonna ask me to read something?
No, I'm gonna read it for you.
Oh, you're gonna make me verify that then?
Yeah.
Okay, just a second, I need to.
Oh, man. It's like you take that test with an eye doctor. The admin fee is charged on each invoice. It is not a tax surcharge or fee mandated by or related to any governmental or regulatory agency. The admin is intended to help Republic Services operating subsidiaries recover costs associated with the administrative processes related to account maintenance, invoicing, and payment processing for all customers. And it includes an amount designed to achieve an acceptable operating margin. The admin is currently $5.95 per invoice, but is subject to change at Republic Services discretion upon advance notice, which notice may be in the form of an invoice message. Oh, man. Did I read that correctly, Jim?
I will, I will take your word for it.
No, I understand at the bottom here, it does say, at the bottom here, there's a reference to written contracts and franchise and municipal customers, and they've got to look at their individual contract, right?
Correct, this does not apply to.
Right.
the
So my concern is, we've got some invoices that the county provided. So if you look at Exhibit 8, 670.
Seven zero?
6670. Administration fee there at the bottom, do you see that?
Yes.
$5.25. And then if you look at 666, same fee, $5.25. Now, you don't dispute that these charges were assessed to the county, Granite County Solid Waste District, do these administrative fees?
They are on the, I don't get into.
You don't
this.
recognize these invoices
I
as
don't.
Republic documents?
I don't review the.
Objection, Foundation.
He's reviewed the contract. These are charges that were assessed to the.
No, my objection is to the foundation of the document we're looking at right now, not
It's
the
a, it's
contract.
a Republic invoice.
And we've laid no foundation whatsoever for
Okay.
this invoice,
Okay, so
whatever,
yes,
whatever it is.
it's a business record of Republic. It's a regularly conducted business activity.
We haven't established any of this. Council's testifying again.
Okay, so if they're gonna, I mean, I guess they can argue that this isn't their invoice.
I'm not arguing anything. I'm
We'll go-
asking the
we'll go
person
ahead
who's
and-
questioning to lay
We'll
foundation.
go ahead and move on. I'll withdraw the question. Is there any disclosure, Jim, of an administrative fee in the contract with Granite County?
Not in the documents you showed me.
In the contract that you reviewed?
Correct.
Okay.
I move to strike any of the witnesses' testimony referring to this document. It's not been entered into evidence. There's no foundation as to what it is. At this time, it's not clear what the council's questions were directed at. But if this isn't something that the witness can speak to because of a lack of foundation, then I think those comments need to be struck from the record.
And these documents came directly, they were produced by the county. Mr. Bradshaw indicated that they were billed on a monthly basis. They are detailed in the budget detail report. Mr. Hutchinson, and if, I mean, they have Republic Services name on the document. It's from the Missoula landfill. And so, sure, if I mean, I believe that these are self-authenticating invoices from Republic, but if we want to dispute the validity of these.
I'm not, just to be clear, commissioners, I apologize if there's been a lack of clarity. I'm not disputing what the documents depict. I'm suggesting that there's been no testimony elicited so far from this witness, that this witness is capable of testifying about the subject.
I don't need him to testify on the subject.
And yet we've just asked him a number of questions
About
about
an
the subject.
administrative fee that was charged that was not disclosed in the contract, but yet it was billed to the customer.
Well, that is what you are, that does appear to be where the line of questioning is headed, but there's no indication that the witness is qualified to testify about this document.
I mean, and I guess he could say, I don't recognize this document, but that's not what he said.
And that's why I'm moving to strike it from the record.
Okay.
Thank you, council. One moment.
Motion is denied.
I want to talk, Jim, about the meeting minutes, the meeting that you attended with the county. It's exhibit 9. I think we're looking at pages 442. 442. Before coming to this meeting on July 2nd, had you been to Granite County before?
Through, yes,
You drove through?
right, on vacations,
Okay.
on vacation.
That's the same thing.
So what I'm specifically interested in is there was some discussion at this meeting about amending the contract and whether the public could amend the contract. And so specifically, I'm looking at page 443. About a third of the way down the page, there's a sentence in the meeting minutes that says Jim Hutchinson added that with the contract extension, the public is limited as to what they can do aside from extending the contract. Did I read that correctly, Jim?
You did.
Okay, so how was, what was Republic limited by?
We had no indication, or we weren't there prepared to amend because we hadn't heard anything from the county that they wanted to amend.
So in the beginning of the meeting, it looks like Commissioner, when this topic was first covered, if you flip back over to page 442, Commissioner Adler, that's the third line from the end. Commissioner Adler inquired if the Republic contract could be extended for 3 years as opposed to 5. Did I read that correctly?
You did.
Okay. And so when he's asking that, is he proposing an amendment to the contract?
Objection calls for speculation.
What is your, I'll withdraw the question. What is your interpretation? Is that, what would the change in term be from 3 to 5 years?
That would be in connection to what we were doing there. That would actually be a new contract.
Oh, okay.
Because the new contract or the old contract didn't stipulate the ability to do that. The only thing that was in the old contract was the ability to extend.
So it's a renewal option for 5 years.
Correct.
Okay.
And at our notice, and we provided notice. So in accordance with the contract, we were there simply to say, we provided notice,
Mhm.
the contract is extended, and we're getting the county to confirm that.
So you were exercising the renewal option. It sounds like Commissioner Adler was proposing that let's do a shorter term, right?
And my comments through the conversation there was, we can have that at a later time, but we are not prepared. We haven't done the financial due diligence to determine if a shorter term was sufficient for our needs or not. And so we were not prepared to do anything
What's
other
involved,
than what was currently.
sure. What's involved in the financial due diligence of changing from a 3-year extension on the contract from a 5-year is contained in the renewal options for the contract and a 3-year?
I object only to the extent that this intrudes upon attorney-client privilege between the representatives of Republic that deal with contracts and any part of that financial process that deals with Republic's counsel.
Response?
I don't know anything about their process, so I can't speak to that. I think he can answer the question to the extent it doesn't reference privileged information. And if that is the case, he could say those are communications with my attorney. But that's, we don't have that here. I mean, I understand Mr. Purcell's objection, but I don't have any basis for knowing that he's reviewing that with legal counsel. So I would, how to respond to that.
Would Republic be fine with the witness answering the question to the extent he's able to?
Perhaps we can inquire as to that process first and then determine if there's an issue. And then if there's no issue, then I have no problem with the line of question.
That was my understanding, as to the question that I asked was, what is that process for instead of a 5-year extension? What's involved in doing that?
If that's the way the question's been rephrased, I withdraw my objection.
Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm struggling between this instance and how a normal process would work. So a normal process, we would get notice that the county, in this case, because it's a disposal contract, we would get notice from the county that they want to create a new contract. We would obviously, as I mentioned earlier, notify our legal counsel in terms of any drafts for them to review. Then we would undergo what we call an LPA, a financial document, to determine the pricing. And we would have a conversation with the individuals who are directed in a reference. We have our levels of authority, given the volume and revenue and everything else. They need to approve the pricing.
And how long does that process usually take?
Depends the size of the contract.
This contract, how long would that process take?
Objection calls for speculation.
I think you could say he doesn't know. It's not speculative. He's the municipal sales director. He does these contracts all the time.
It's a hypothetical question about this contract.
It's not, I mean, it's a question about how long did this process take that he just described the process. I understand that he knows what the process is. I think he might know that there's foundation for me to ask the question of how long the process takes.
Thank you, counsel.
Objection overruled.
Go ahead, Jamie, can answer the question.
The process really depends upon the finance manager who creates the.
Okay, this
Okay.
contract that we're talking about here. So you have you're talking about Jeff Wiggs?
I don't know.
You don't.
I can't remember when Wiggs, I'm trying to recall when Wiggs took over.
He's been here since I've been here. It was 10
Well, he
years.
came from Utah here. I don't remember the year that he did that.
Longer than a month?
No.
Okay, so this was July and the contract term would have been up and, this was early July, contract term would have been August 19th, right? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
So you could have conceivably taken that back to do the due diligence before the contract expired.
That wasn't the issue before the commission that day. So
Okay, but that's not my question. So my question is, if this proposal for 3 years versus 5 years, you could have taken that back, done your due diligence before the contract expired, right?
potentially.
There's one other comment referenced in here about Jim. So there was a 443. So Jim explained granite disposal hauling to the landfill was a PSC permitting question. You see that?
Yes,
Okay, are you familiar with granite disposal permits?
yes, I had read what, it's been a few years, but yes, I read them.
And so it was your understanding that he didn't have authority to haul to a landfill?
I believe my statement was he needed to ask the PSC for that determination. And that I was not going to provide a statement.
Okay, you were asked a question or something? Is that why?
There was, my recollection is that there was a lot of dialogue about whether or not he was authorized to haul. And so there was references to his permit. And at that point, I stipulated I was not a person to tell him what he could or could not do, that he needed to speak with the PSC and get a determination of his legal authority, permitted authority from them.
So that sounds a little bit different than this sentence in the meeting minutes. Jim Hutchinson explained that Rick Robinson's request to haul waste directly to the landfill is not a question for the county, but that would have to be a PSC permitting question. It sounds like you were telling the county that they couldn't tell Mr. Robinson that he could haul directly to the landfill, their waste directly to the landfill.
He was asking the county if he could do that, and I said he needed to refer to the PSC and ask the PSC for their interpretation of his permit.
Okay, and what is your basis, or what is your belief as to why you would make that representation?
Because the PSC governs permits.
And you've read Mr. Robinson's permit, is that correct?
He had, if I recall correctly, he had a couple of them.
I know.
And they were modifications of one. So it was confusing to me at the time.
Right, and was there anything about, did it designate a disposal facility?
Objection, the permits speak for themselves, the certificates, excuse me, speak for themselves.
Yes, and I'm asking about the representation that was Mr. Hutchinson made to the county commission.
That is not what the question was. We could read it back if that's possible.
Sure, go ahead.
Did it designate a disposal facility?
He said he reviewed the permit, so I'm gonna stand on that.
I reviewed them.
I think, do we have an objection?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Objection sustained.
And for a brief follow-up, the commission on its own motion will take judicial notice of its interstate carriers authority list dated October 24th, 2024, that is available on the commission's website.
Thank you. Jim, can you talk to me about this mapping system? When did Republic start using that? KMT?
Oh, to clarify, the KMT is the knowledge management tool that's not a mapping system.
Okay. Sorry, what is the mapping system that Republic uses?
The only thing I know about it is that it's a GIS based system. I don't use that.
You don't have anything to do with that?
I do not.
Okay, and did you have anything to do with resolving the discrepancy in the service area map related to this case?
I do not.
Okay, and so you didn't talk to any of the individuals involved?
Objection vague.
You didn't talk to, I'll withdraw the question. You didn't talk to any of the individuals involved that are employed by Republic
Objection vague. About what?
about this service area
Asked and answered.
mistake?
She just asked him if he had been involved with the corrections. This mistake, he testified he had not been.
And I'm asking if you spoke to him. It's a different question.
About the mistake.
I'll
Can you
stand
one
on
at a
it.
time?
Sorry.
Be careful not to talk over each other.
I'll look at it, Commissioner Law now.
Objection overruled.
I was briefed on it afterwards.
By who?
Ryan Call.
What did Mr. Kaufman tell you?
I don't recall the exact words. I know my brain, it was an issue that was resolved, so I left it at that.
I have no further questions for this witness at this time.
Mr. Hutchinson, I have two questions for you. One of them, at the end of your testimony last night, you said that Republic is rated as one of the most ethical companies, and I didn't catch what that was based on or who did the scoring.
It is and I can't remember the name of it. I mentioned it was a national rating, and I was reinformed last night that it was an international firm that does it's called Ecosphere, I believe it's called. I don't have the exact name right off the top of my head. I just have the.
So it was an international organization that rated.
It's an international organization that reviews companies based upon their dealings, and they investigate the entire company, so Montana as well, about their dealings, and then they rate them based upon their criteria on determining an ethical company, similar to the Great Places to Work, which we're proud to be a member of as well.
Okay. And my second question, you indicated that rural routes in Granite County may be hurt by additional competition for roll-off services. Could you explain specifically how you think that might occur?
Yes, rural routes, are typically, and there's a potential financial impact. There's also a potential environment impact. When we were talking earlier about 7 trucks, no, I don't believe there'll be 7 trucks coming into the county, but 2, absolutely, where there used to be 1. Okay, that's because we have competition here. When you also look at the availability of when a truck is in an area, you can get some economies of scale when a truck is going through an area and providing services depending on what's necessarily needed on that. Instead, we now have 2 trucks coming from Missoula. If there's competition allowed, you have 2 companies going out into the rural area. Those are kind of some of the first impacts. Obviously, on the other side is the financial impacts, and we had a good conversation about profitability. And profitability, as I was trying to allude to, obviously, is based not only about the prices you choose, but about the efficiencies that you have. If you're less efficient, if you're going to maintain your margins, you have to raise your rates. That's just Econ 101. And so if we're not in the area as much from just the efficiencies there, just from an economies of scale standpoint, that makes it very difficult. Also, as I believe I alluded to in my testimony, there's been a lot of conversation about one contract. If one company goes after that one contract and they believe they're going to cherry pick that one contract and that's going to justify coming out in a rural area, that leaves the other one to say, okay, well, the only thing I have to go out there for is this individual, potentially 1 or 2 calls a month. And there's going to be less desire to do that, and that will be reflected in rates. And in prior testimony, I've always said that the permit system in Montana has always been kind of balanced between the urban and the rural areas, in that the urban areas tend to subsidize the rural areas to make sure that we provide service in the rural areas. When we get down into this specific conversation, we're only talking about rural areas. There's nowhere to balance those things out. And so that economy of scale that's lost is a negative impact. There's also been some conversations about the profit, or the revenue, I should say, that Republic gets from this market, and how whether or not we would be impacted significantly. So in my opinion, that the permit system is not based upon necessarily the negative impact to the company, because yes, we have a negative impact, that should be obvious, but it's to the detriment of the rural areas. And that is saying, yes, if we are negatively impacted in this area, if it becomes less profitable, in order to maintain our margins, our rates would need to go up. And so that competition in rural area is, in my opinion, why the permit system was first initially initiated. And that is to protect the rural areas and make sure that services are not impacted. I would also say that one of the testifiers, Mr. Robinson, mentioned the comment about farmers who will bury stuff in their backyard. I was asked by the applicant's counsel if I thought we had competition in this market, or if there was no competition in this market. I said, no, there is competition.
And I'm gonna object, because the question was roll off containers. And so I think we've gone well, he's answered your question. I think we've gone well beyond answering your question, Commissioner Chicken. I object to this narrative.
Have any response regarding your witness?
I'd like to hear what the witness has to say, but it's up to the commission.
Thank you.
Sustained.
Oh, we didn't get on that microphone.
Objection sustained, and we'll go on. Do you have any questions, Mr. Hutchinson? Do you?
No questions.
Okay. Did you want to recross?
I do not.
I just have a couple of questions on redirect, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Proceed.
There was a couple of questions that were posed to you about the geographic location of the customer service representatives that the public has. And I understand you don't have a great deal of interaction with them, mostly with management. But you know, to the extent you're capable of testifying about it, do all of the customer service representatives use the same knowledge management tool, to the extent you're aware?
Yes, but variations of it.
Variations of it, okay. And so for the variation that's applicable to this service area, Granite County, if that customer service representative was located here in Granite County, they would be able to reference that knowledge management tool, correct?
And I'm gonna object to testimony further about this knowledge management tool. If we want to talk about it, let's produce the program, and let's produce, we have the map, we don't have any other information about what these customer services representatives are looking at. Mr. Hutchinson testified on cross-examination that he had no information about that.
I'll rephrase the question. Mr. Hutchinson, if a customer service representative was looking at Exhibit G, the map that we've discussed previously, and they were located in Granite County, in your reasonable estimation, do you think that they would come to a different conclusion than a different customer service representative located outside of Montana looking at that same map?
Objection calls for speculation.
Response?
I can rephrase the question. We've laid an extensive amount of groundwork about Mr. Hutchinson's qualifications in the garbage hauling industry. So to the extent that we need to get him qualified as a witness, I think we can make that motion and make it an expert opinion. But I think the question is equally valid based on his lay opinion, given his deep experience in this industry.
I don't think you can testify about anything related to what the customer service representatives will do.
I am trying to follow up on the same line of questioning that Ms. Garib asked about. And so if she was able to ask questions about their ability to use this tool, I think I should be afforded the same opportunity.
And he said he had no information about that.
Thank you, counsel.
Objection overruled.
Do you need me to ask you again?
Please.
So if a customer service representative was located here in Granite County, a different customer service representative was located somewhere outside of the state of Montana, and each of them was looking at Exhibit G, would they come to a different conclusion about the area where the public can serve?
They would have the same information, so they would come up with the same answer.
There was a bit of talk about the annual reports that Republic submits to the Public Service Commission. You alluded to the idea that Republic tracks its finances in areas that don't necessarily correspond to the same areas as the certificates. Is that correct?
Correct.
And is it your understanding that Republic reports to the commission based on its certificate numbers because that's what the commission requires?
Correct.
Okay. And Republic tracks its finances based on its business units because of some business needs, presumably, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So just to be clear, an increase in profits for certificate 1581, I think was the one we had referenced. After L&L entered the Missoula market, could be attributed to a number of reasons, correct? Correct. Okay. And not just the Missoula market? Correct. There was some discussion about how Republic provided service. Just to clarify, that is not your job, correct? Correct. All right. Again, just to clarify, when we're talking about attachment B to the, or exhibit B to the contract with Granite County, gets your understanding that may be a scrivener's error or a typo? Correct. And both the scope of work and the fees are included on what's exhibit A to the contract? Correct. All right. One moment to look at my notes. Jim, that's all the questions I have for you, and I very much thank you for your time.
Do you have any further witnesses?
Republic does not, at this time, the Republic would ask that Jim Hutchinson be excused permanently so he can get on his flight.
You're excused permanently. Thank you, sir.
Republic has no further witnesses and the Republic rests.
Right. Do the parties wish to present a brief closing statement?
I'd
I have no preference.
I'd like to confer with Mr. Chair, maybe 5 minutes to discuss. I think we had discussed oral closings, but maybe a pause to collect our thoughts, if that's all right.
We'll take a 10-minute break. Will that be adequate?
That's fine.
Thank you, Commissioner.
The time now is 11:34. We'll meet back at 11:45. We'll reconvene. So we're back on the record. The time is 11:48. Brief closing statements. L&L, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Butchek, Commissioner Wellborn, Ms. Webster, for closing council. Thank you for being patient with us over the course of these last few days. We are gonna ask the commission to approve L&L's application to provide Class D services utilizing roll-off containers in Granite County. The commission is well aware. Analysis and a Class D application involves a number of factors. And, we think we've met our burden as the applicant on each of those. In terms of applicant fitness, I don't think there's reasonable dispute here. The commission has taken administrative notice of prior findings made consistently throughout L&L's six applications that the commission has considered, but that they are fit, willing, and able to provide the proposed service. L&L's financial condition is not in dispute. We've introduced the last 3 years of annual reports, which indicate continued growth, and testimony from Mr. Johnson regarding the availability of commercial financing. That is not something that will be necessary here. The expansion into Granite County is really an attempt to meet a need that L&L identified, Grizzly and Grizzly Disposal identified based on their contacts with Granite Disposal and those kind of things. We have evidence of public need here from shipper witnesses. We have the ranch at Rock Creek. Brandon and Angie both testified about that need and the nature of that need. In terms of the ranch at Rock Creek, what I would argue is this resort serves as a tourist destination, and it demonstrates their need for roll-off service, demonstrates public need. These folks are coming to this ranch and spending their hard-earned or trust fund delivered money to have an experience in Montana. I know a lot of us want to encourage people to come here and leave after they're done. Come here, have the Montana experience, and go home. And that's exactly what I think the ranch at Rock Creek provides for tourists, but their need is they have to have that property in pristine condition. Now they're going to have capital projects and remodels, and they have to have efficient, responsive, flexible options for roll-off service to meet their needs and keep that property in the kind of condition that the people coming there to spend their money expect. And it's just not available to them right now in Granite County. They've patched together services from Granite Disposal using containers from Grizzly, and they've made it work at this point, but they've got to be able to solve this problem. And I believe those people coming in, are going to bring money into the community. The ranch itself is a steward in the community in Granite County. You heard testimony from Angie about the philanthropy efforts and charitable donations that the ranch makes on a regular basis. And so it's in the public interest of citizens of Granite County that we help them meet their waste disposal needs and bring in an additional carrier. In addition to the ranch at Rock Creek, we've got Lance Cheney, and then we had Mr. Fink. But Mr. Cheney talked about his efforts to get roll-off service from Republic. I think there was some testimony from Republic in an attempt to rebut that, well, we have records of these previous requests that they made. Well, if you have the records, the presumption is if you produce testimony instead of these records, that the records, if produced, would be less favorable. And so they have records, they could have produced them, they didn't. The Granite County contract really seems to be the heart of what Republic wants to keep, and I don't see how they lose that in the next 5 years, but it doesn't mean that those facts related to the recent attempts at negotiation of that contract and discussions with Grizzly Disposal aren't also indirect evidence of need. That a local government entity is in a situation where it has one option and the loan option insists on locking that government entity into a 5-year term when the contract clearly allows for amendment of the terms of the contract if both parties agree. There's no limitations on when that can be amended. It just has to be in writing. They could easily have agreed to the 3-year term instead of the 5-year term. There's no other provider in that area when that contract was, the renewal option was extended. But they've got it for the next 5 years, unless there's some default. Because there is a termination provision, and that's a contract drafted by Republic. And you heard testimony from Mr. Hutchinson that that's Republic lawyers that draft those contracts. It's not County Attorney Blaine Bradshaw. So it's all evidence of need. We have other indirect evidence of need from Rick Robinson at Granite Disposal. He gets phone calls from contractors looking for roll-off service in Granite County. He talked about Republic's reputation among contractors in Granite County related to roll-off service. It's not good. Even Republic's shipper witness that they brought in from Granite Custom Homes said that, you know, she would comparison shop. She, you know, if they had a better price, she would look into the other carrier. Now, she was satisfied with the existing service that she receives from that Granite Custom Homes receives from Republic, but you know, she's interested if somebody can offer her a better price, that she would consider switching. It's not a loyalty issue for her, and so in terms of what Republic has attempted to argue here, I think in dealing with trying to address the issue with the ranch at Rock Creek, we have sort of the appearance of meaningful participation. We have emails that were introduced from Republic employees. We don't have those Republic employees here to testify. Presumably they could bring Lou Hoffman and Jen Murray here to testify, the people who actually wrote the emails, to talk about what they think happened, or whether or not they actually made a mistake, or what the issue was. But we never heard from those folks. And in these proceedings, the commission has made clear that protestants have an obligation to make their services known. And if a protestant does not make a witness available at the hearing, the applicant must then depose the witness or submit data requests. And this information collection costs the parties money. And so the commission has has found in prior proceedings that in order to impose fewer transaction costs on a proceeding, a party protesting an application should be expected to make its witnesses available to the party for, to the parties for testimony at the hearing. When a protestant fails to do so, such an approach is contrary to the commission's regulatory relationship with existing haulers. The commission's primary authority is regulation in Class D matters, is regulation of entry into the market. The best opportunity that this commission has to scrutinize the performance of existing carriers is through hearing testimony and application proceedings. The greatest motivation that this commission can give to existing carriers to fully and robustly meet their regulatory obligations is through the possibility of allowing another service provider to enter the market. And so, yes, we heard from management about what their response to this 3-month course of we do not provide this service in this area. And then we heard management admit to making a mistake. But we didn't hear directly from any of these customer service representatives that dealt with the ranch at Rock Creek and explained why they thought that they couldn't service this area and why they suggested that Grizzly Disposal or some other vendor could actually service the area. Because it's not that they said we don't have containers or we'll get to you when we need to, or it's going to be a couple weeks or it's going to be a couple days. It's we don't serve this area. And you heard that testimony from Ryan Kaufman yesterday that they don't even really know how long that map has been wrong. They've done no investigation to find out who they have missed, if they've missed anyone else beyond the ranch at Rock Creek. They can't tell you who else called seeking service. Now, they certainly have the capability. This kind of a company, they track every customer interaction that they have, and it's recorded. But they can't, for some reason, haven't produced anything in this hearing to indicate when this issue was actually identified, when it started, and when it got fixed, if it got fixed. We just don't have that. We have no documentation other than here's this map that was wrong and here's this corrected map. So I think we've met our burden in terms of demonstrating public need. There was service denial and there was indirect need for an additional carrier. And the commission can also consider the need for competition. In all honesty, every service area that Republic competes with L&L, and they compete, and there are they make an effort to retain customers when a customer wants to switch. That they do things to try to serve the customer better, and those are the kind of things that are needed in Granite County so that folks can get the service that they need. We've heard some information about, or we have the census information. No one's disputing this is a rural county, and it's sparsely populated. But that's exactly where people are building. The people that are coming to Montana are building. And we've heard from the contractors and heard from Granite Disposal that this community is growing in terms of the number of residential construction projects at a minimum. And so we do have a need. We believe that L&L met its burden in terms of need. The lack of harm to the existing carriers, we as the applicant certainly have the burden. I think my job is a little easier when the carrier is the second largest waste management company in the country. We've got their annual, we've got Republic's annual reports, which are approximately, revenue is approximately 3 times what L&L earns annually. 3 times the revenue that L&L sees. We're talking about a service area and the amount of revenue, that annual revenue that's in dispute is $166,290. It's less than 0.27% of Republic's annual revenue under PSC number 1581. Even if L&L could take all of their customers in Granite County, which they can't because most of that revenue comes from a contract that is has a new 5-year term that was just entered last fall, they're not going to be harmed. There is the last 4 or 5 hearings that I've done, Republic has made this broad assertion about this potential harm to rural customers. Well, these rural customers are already being harmed. The public already has authority to haul here. They have authority to provide residential and commercial garbage, and we don't have any information that they're providing that service. That's not something that L&L could deal with in this application, but it's a foot in the door. Because if we can get this roll-off service, we get operations running down here, that's the next step, is to make sure that the people in this county have access to regular residential and commercial garbage service if they need it. That current authority that Republic has, there's no information that it's meeting its responsibilities under that. In terms of the public interest, the potential harm to Republic is de minimis at this point. Now, when you have entry by a new carrier, there's always some risk that the existing carrier is going to lose some customers. That is not necessarily against or contrary to the public interest. We've got when deciding the element of harm to existing carriers, that's a subjective matter. And this is language from L&L's original application in order number 6845. Docket number T-06.32.PCN, paragraphs 21 through 25 are instructive, but in a zero sum, I'll just read this part. Particularly deals with roll-off service. Shippers need quick response, flexible scheduling, and adaptability to unique and changing circumstances at construction sites. And that's true all over. Residential and commercial garbage service, the commission considers an application for that. There's more of a focus on this lack of harm to the existing carriers because that's more related to the public interest. You have garbage trucks running every day, and they're running regular routes on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, and so there's always that concern there, and there's a larger concern when we're talking about that service. But in dealing with roll-off service, it's a niche area of garbage service, and so there's less consideration given to harm to the existing carriers. And we're not protecting the existing carriers for the sake of protecting existing carriers. We're doing that to protect the public interest, and really that residential and commercial garbage service, that regular service, we want to encourage that. And so that's something that we consider much more thoroughly and heavily in those kinds of applications. But here we're talking about roll-off service, and admittedly, Republic is serving 2 or 3 people a quarter. And so there's really no reasonable prospect of certainly not 7 trucks, but really even 2 trucks. The nature of the service is temporary. Their job sites, hopefully, it's not taking 2 years to get a project done. But in any case, even temporary, no matter how long the project takes, you've got one provider serving that site. You won't have other trucks coming down that same road because you likely won't have, in an area like this, projects near one another. And so at this point, I think that we would argue that L&L has met their burden as an applicant, and we would ask that the commission approve the application as a ancillary matter. We submitted data requests in this matter. What the applicant has a little bit of control in this situation about timing. So we have some deadlines in the statute, 180 days, and that can only be continued by the applicant in terms of getting a decision. And so, you know, there's a little bit of legal strategy involved in that, but there's also just, you know, how much is this going to cost for us to get to this point? How much do we need? How many people do we need to bring to this hearing? How many days do we need to spend at a hearing when the revenue, when we're talking about maybe servicing, you know, 5 or 6 customers? But L&L felt that this was important enough that they hired me to do this, to come here for 3 days to, you know, argue this case to the commission, knowing that there's not a huge amount of profit associated with this, but seeing that there is a need. And in terms of Republic's participation in this matter as a protestant, there's some evidentiary issues. There were lots of objections, and even when the objections were just relevance, despite the commission's procedural order indicating that relevance or admissibility objections would not be considered unless, and so if you're not raising a confidentiality or privilege issue and you don't produce the documents, okay, well, then you don't get to talk about those things. That's how the rules work. And those rules are, and it's 26 and 37 of the Rules of Civil Procedure have been specifically adopted and incorporated into the commission's rules. And so also the statutory provisions on evidence in Montana are controlling in commission proceedings. And so I would encourage the commission to think about, when analyzing this case, Montana Code Annotated Section 26.1.602 sub 5, which is a disputable presumption, statutory presumption, that says that evidence willfully suppressed would be adverse if produced. If we requested documents or evidence from Republic and they didn't produce it, that if they did produce it, it would hurt them. Okay? And so I think that is one of the overarching considerations that this commission should think about when deciding this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Public, brief closing.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioner Wellborn, staff, recorder, council. Thank you all for taking the time to consider the evidence that's been presented in this matter. While Granite County may have a relatively small need for roll-off services, I think it's safe to say that the same important considerations apply here, just as in many other parts of our state. As I know the commission is already aware, the applicant carries the sole burden of proof to show by a preponderance of the evidence each of the 4 elements of public convenience and necessity. So the applicant must show its fitness, it must show a public need, it must show that Republic cannot or will not meet that public need, And it must show that the entry of a new hauler would not be contrary to the public interest. Grizzly Disposal simply did not meet its burden here, and the commission should resist any attempt to shift that burden onto Republic. Now, Grizzly has provided some evidence for the commission to consider. It did not, however, demonstrate that it had thought this application through. From the moment it attempted to file its application, it revealed its lack of planning. The application itself was filed in reliance on a single affidavit, a single shipment. That affidavit was over 4.5 months old at the time the application was filed. Despite intending to move into a predominantly rural market, Grizzly confidently asserts that it will maintain the same profitability as it does in Missoula County. And this assertion might make sense if Grizzly had a plan to serve Granite County, which is fundamentally different from Missoula in terms of location, population, and need. Grizzly's owner, manager, and employees did not testify that there was a business plan. While they may attempt to excuse that by claiming that the plan is not required by their lenders, the value of a business plan is not solely for convincing some bank to lend funds to a new risky venture. The value of a business plan is to take the time necessary to plan that new business venture, even if the plan is not reviewed by anyone. It allows the owner and his team to consider how the company may prepare, operate, and even compete in an area where it's not previously done so. This failure was highlighted by Grizzly's testimony that it does not have any idea how many customers it would even serve here. Without a business plan, the commission is left to speculate as to Grizzly's intentions. The commission heard testimony about the need for roll-off services in Granite County. Several witnesses testified about their perception of this need. Aside from the county's transfer sites here in Phillipsburg and in Drummond, witnesses on both sides suggested that calls for roll-off containers did not exceed 2 customers per month. And a 52-year veteran of the garbage hauling industry testified that in some months, there may be no calls for roll-offs at all. The evidence before the commission shows that the county's population has grown in a rather gradual manner over several decades. And during that period, the record also indicates that the need for roll-offs has not measurably increased. This may be because, as Rick Robinson testified, Granite Disposal has been meeting the needs of 90% of the county's businesses and numerous residents during this entire period. The remaining 10% of businesses, Granite County residents and Granite County itself, already have an existing provider that's willing and able to meet their needs. Republic and Grizzly witnesses alike agreed that Republic can meet that public need. Other than a single mistake, which was acknowledged and corrected, Grizzly was not able to provide a single example of a shipper that was denied service. Lance Cheney, one of only 2 shippers who testified for Grizzly, explained that he has sought roll-off service on only 1 occasion in the last 5 years. In doing so, he spoke directly to Republic staff, who needed more information in order to fulfill his request. When Republic promptly called him back, Mr. Cheney was busy and he didn't pick up his phone. Okay. When Mr. Cheney was finally free to talk, he determined that he would rather use a dump trailer and he declined to request Republic's roll-off. Similarly, Scott Fink testified earlier today that he was not denied service. As a result, Grizzly has tied its whole case to a single mistake made regarding the ranch at Rock Creek. The evidence shows that an inexperienced employee at the ranch failed to coordinate with his coworkers and may not have even realized that the ranch had previously received roll-off services from Republic. When Republic realized that it did make a mistake, it acted swiftly. It called the ranch on the same day and it fixed its service maps promptly, despite the impact of the holiday season. Ranch employee Angela Scantling acknowledged that she ignored calls regarding garbage service and did not pass them on to other ranch employees responsible for those matters. I think it's notable that during this period we've been talking about, Mr. Cheney did not indicate that he was denied service because he was in Granite County. In fact, he testified that Republic employees had offered him roll-off service in this county. And so I think it's worth noting that the potential length of this map issue is rather contained. Republic's actions regarding both Lance Cheney and the ranch at Rock Creek show a large but nimble company that's dedicated to responding to its customers' needs. Grizzly's actions paint a different picture. Grizzly identified that a mistake had been made when it was contacted by the ranch at Rock Creek last summer. Grizzly's leadership team, including its general manager, operations manager, and an experienced customer service representative, all had previously worked at Republic and all had previously worked to help serve Granite County's needs. All three of them were fully aware of their customer's need, and all three had the experience to know that the customer was in an area that Republic could serve. All three chose to stay silent. To be clear, Grizzly had no obligation to notify its competitor, Republic. Likewise, Grizzly had no obligation to notify the commission that something was amiss. Grizzly's failure to notify anyone, however, shows that it placed its own financial interests over the well-being of that prospective customer. Grizzly knew of an unmet need, it knew who could meet that need, and it chose to use that information to its own advantage rather than help the customer. This behavior stands in stark contrast to a company like Republic that looks at garbage service as a commitment to Montanans and not just something to drive its bottom line. There are a limited number of Montanans, a limited customer base here in Granite County. Introducing another hauler into this territory could split those customers between Grizzly and Republic. We would all like to believe that that sort of activity would drive down prices. However, the testimony that was put forward by Republic indicates that competition does not always drive down prices. In fact, the reduction of operational efficiencies can drive up operating costs. And when the applicant has pegged their profits to 10 to 20%, those rising costs for the hauler translate into rising bills for customers. On top of this, the increase in truck traffic would likely burden county infrastructure, which would increase repair costs paid by those same county residents that Grizzly seeks to serve. Finally, despite Montana's regulatory scheme, you heard County Attorney Blaine Bradshaw's personal opinions about the need for competition. The facts before the commission, however, show that the need for competition, if any, is speculative at best, because the county's governing body voted unanimously to approve a negotiated contract to provide for the county's roll-off needs until 2029. Putting this all together, what do we get? The existing hauler clearly has the resources to meet the roll-off needs in Granite County. But for one error, there's no evidence that Republic failed to provide roll-offs when requested to do so. The single error, a misplaced map boundary, was immediately acknowledged and quickly fixed. The county itself has no unmet need till the end of the decade. Republic stands ready, willing, and able to serve the people and the businesses in Granite County, and it respectfully requests that this commission deny Grizzly Disposal's application for a Class C certificate. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move off the record for a brief scheduling conference. The time is 12:21. We're now off the record. Now we're back on the record. The time is 12:26. The results of the scheduling conference will now be read into the record by Commission Staff Attorney Amanda Webster as an order of the Public Service Commission. And
Thank
no
you.
separate scheduling order will be issued.
The parties have agreed to file simultaneous proposed findings of fact and conclusions of law with the commission no later than 60 days after receiving the transcript of this hearing from the court reporter.
Public participation. Thank you so much. The evidentiary hearing is now closed and the final public comment period is open. Are there any commenters, public commenters in the room? Seeing none. Any commenters online?
No.
Seeing none, we will now close the hearing. Anyone wishing to follow the outcome of this matter may follow docket number 2024.12.119 on the Commission's online ready portal. Please contact the Commission at 800-646-6150 or email pschelp@mt.gov with any questions about accessing the portal or subscribing to notice filings. Thank you to everyone that's participating in this. The hearing is now adjourned. The time is 12:28.